Well, welcome everyone to Marketing Mentors Network Shark Tank Recruiting Edition, November 18th, 2020. We are super excited for this evening. We've been planning this for quite some time, and finally, here it is. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a really jam-packed evening today. We're dividing this into two parts. We have part one, which is from 6 to roughly 7 p.m. We do have some outside guests joining us this evening. So that will be really focused around the panel with our sharks this evening, followed by a Q&A. And we do want to encourage conversation, questions, comments in the chat box. And we'll be monitoring that throughout the panel. We'll see if we can fit them in during the panel. If not, we'll hold them until the end of the until the sharks are done. So without further ado, we do have a couple of people that are not members of AMADC, and I just love talking about the organization. I'm Angela Long. I'm the Chief Branding Officer of AMADC, and we are one of the top chapters of AMA, which is the professional chapter for marketers. We provide education, career resources, and programming, all for marketing professionals and their friends. Our goal is to help marketers stay at the top of their game. We are a volunteer-run organization. Our goal is to connect marketers across multiple industries. It's a place for marketers to call home, and we're building a community. We always invite anyone who's not a member to join us. And there you go. We have about 50 events nationally per year. We're one of the largest chapters, and a huge shout out. We actually just won the Silver Chapter of the Year. It is a huge honor for AMADC. I don't think we've ever won one of the top awards. And we're absolutely thrilled that we've gotten this designation, and you'll be hearing more about it in the upcoming weeks. So here we are, our illustrious panel of sharks. I'm just super excited about this event, but we will have each of our sharks introduce themselves. We have a really great, they were intentionally chosen because they represent different parts of the recruiting industry. So they'll have some really different perspectives to share with you tonight. Let's start with Shark 1, Trevon Williams. Shark 2, Sue Keith. Shark 3, Rodney Jenkins. And Shark 4 is Bob Corlett. And I'll have each of you introduce yourselves. Let's start with Trevon.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Trevon Williams, as was mentioned. I'm the Vice President of Market Communications with the NAACP. Been with the NAACP for roughly about 18 months now. It's been a whirlwind of 18 months, to say the least, but I'm certainly excited about the opportunity to offer any perspective with you all this evening. Honored to be a part of the panel. Thank you so much, Angela, and really, really excited about the panelists that I get to sit on this with as well. So let's get to work.
Thank you, Trevon. Sue, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I am Sue Keith. I'm a partner with Cirrus Talent. We are a marketing, staffing, and recruiting firm based in Reston. The reason we specialize exclusively in marketing, and I'd say marketing, comms, product, and everything that falls underneath those categories, is because everyone on our team, granted we're a small shop, but everyone on our team spent the majority of our careers in marketing before we moved into recruiting. So we like to say we speak the language, and I think we're pretty good at the matchmaking, which is what we do for a living. And I'm pretty excited to be here today. I'm telling everybody I get to be a shark tonight. Even my teenage kids are somewhat impressed, slightly.
Rodney, over to you.
All right, thank you, Angela. My name is Rodney Jenkins. I'm a senior technical recruiter with Micron Technology. And Micron is a global memory chip leader. And certainly we have a very large office in Manassas, Virginia. And certainly it's an honor to be here. I've been with Micron for about 2 years, and definitely I really, really enjoy the opportunity to certainly network and certainly connect with other professionals. So definitely it's an honor to be part of the team with the Shark Tank recruitment. Just to let you know, I am a recent author, and my book will be published in December of this year, Be the DJ of Your Career. So again, welcome you all, and I look forward to the ongoing conversations.
Last but not least, Bob, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Corlett. I run an executive search firm called Staffing Advisors. we primarily serve associations, nonprofits, and growing companies. And we do kind of all fields of endeavor, not just marketing, but all the functional areas from CEO all the way to, frontline managers. So happy to be with you today and looking forward to being the baby shark on the panel.
So let's get started. Of course, someone has some technical issues here. So we're going to start this panel. One quick second, because my computer was doing some funny things while y'all were talking. Let's go. One quick second. So we've had economic downturns before, but the pandemic has forced a new type of job search. Given each of you represent different areas in the hiring process, we'd like to hear your perspectives. So how has the hiring changed in our new normal? And we want to start with Sue as a recruiter. What do you think?
Well, I think the big kind of global change, if you will, we went from a buyer's market to a seller's market. So buyers think candidates, sellers think companies who are hiring, and it flipped overnight. So for the last, I've been doing this for about 8 years, and I would say for at least the majority of that time, super low unemployment, companies, candidates could afford to be picky, companies could not, and it just flipped overnight. So I will say, while I've never met a hiring manager who's not kind of picky, they can afford to be very choosy right now. And I don't mean to be discouraging, but it is our reality that they can be, they can be incredibly choosy at the moment. So, which as a plug for later, makes it even more important that when you're applying for a job, that you make sure your resume, your cover letter is customized for, to really showcase, tie into what that job description says they're looking for, and make sure your resume sings.
Rodney, over to you. How about being internal?
Yeah, what I'm seeing definitely to Sue's point, it's definitely a market that's slanted in the from the direction of a company having such a strong opportunity to certainly consider a lot of candidates. For example, I recently posted a position about a week ago, and actually it was a senior sales position. I thought maybe I would have maybe 40 or 50 candidates. I had over 110 candidates within 3 days of posting the position. So just goes to show you that definitely, I think there's a lot of folks who are mid to senior level professionals who are aggressively trying to find a job because the downturn in the job market has been so comprehensive. So for me, I'm definitely in a good situation with my hiring managers as far as having a lot of candidates with high level skills and a variety of skills, really a dream opportunity in terms of candidates we can present to hiring managers. So definitely, I think that is the reality that I'm seeing. And it hasn't slowed down in terms of just the incredible volume of applications for a variety of positions from entry level all the way up to senior level.
Trevon, as a hiring manager, what's your perspective, experience?
Well, I echo much of the sentiments that Rodney and Sue alluded to as well. We're in a very, very unique set of circumstances now in which, I've gotten so many applications surrounding efforts that are different opportunities that we have within the association itself. It's hard to pick and choose through them. The qualifying them into even that much more difficult. One of the unique opportunities, or I guess you could say challenges that have been arise now, is that because of the fact that there has been such a large class of individuals who are looking for employment as well, and then largely most of our interviews are going to be taking place via Zoom. Navigating and finding the time to be able to get all the interviews that you want to get to in an appropriate amount of time, while also having to balance the workday, because actually, we actually have to do our job in concert. It has its own set of challenges in and of itself. So you want to give each and every candidate the amount of time necessary to make informed decisions, but also recognizing that the day-to-day has to happen as well. And so that balance has been both, I'm sure, challenging for the employer and the employee in many respects.
Bob, to close the loop, Headhunter's perspective.
So there's always this imbalance of supply and demand, and more people looking for jobs or more employers looking for employees. I mean, that's always been true. So the difference in some places has been the context of the business problem. That organizations are facing different constraints now than they faced before. They have a different, set of circumstances. They're trying to cut through the noise in their marketing much more than in the past. And so what's always been true is that the candidate who gets the context right of what business problem am I solving, what impact can I make, can I do it with inside the constraints the organization has, that's always who's going to get the job. And whether you're competing with 12 people or 36 or 52 or 110, it's a context game. It's hey, I can solve this problem. And organizations shorthand that as hit the ground running. But it's like, do you get what we're trying to do here? And can you help me do this thing? And that's a tricky thing. That takes a lot of research as a candidate to make that point and get your messaging clean to make the case for yourself.
Thinking now more specifically about marketers, what should marketers know about looking for a job in this climate? What are organizations looking for? What are the top skill sets that are needed in marketers? I want to start with Bob and Sue, if you can share what you're seeing from your clients' perspectives.
Sue, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll go. Actually, this is great timing because I just did a webinar on the top 5 skills that marketers or hiring managers should be hiring marketers for, if I said that right. So no one will be surprised. My number 1 is digital. And interestingly, I wasn't really even aware how much money was allocated to events in a marketer's budget until events went away. And there's a whole lot of CMOs having this bucket of money that they have to do something with before, as one of our clients said, finance takes the donation back. So a lot, even more money is being thrown into digital than before. And digital has so many components, but we're seeing a more interest in SEO because your website has to work and your content out there has to work even harder. And by the way, I should preface what I'm saying is I come from more of a B2B perspective. That's the majority of our clients, so just as a context there. So as the leads are kind of slowing down, your website has to work a little harder. You got to think more about your content that has an SEO component as well. And then all the paid channels and all that. Number 2 is, interestingly enough, is actually old school PR and social, not so old school. People are turning their sites on earned media because that's something, it's not free per se, but it's not a paid channel, if you will. And what we're also seeing more interestingly is where social tends to have traditionally sat under the marketing group, we're now seeing it moved over into PR. There's always been very gray areas between the two, but there is kind of viewing as more of an earned and owned channel and putting that in that bucket. The third thing is account-based marketing. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically instead of kind of market to the world, you take a defined set of target accounts. It could be 10, it could be 1,000 that you're going to market to specially, and in the rest of your target audience is going to get your mass market stuff. And it's a real collaboration with sales and marketing to figure out how to develop custom content for each stage of the buyer's journey. And that's more surgical approach because as your traditional demand gen channels who were fairly predictable in conversion rates have kind of gone all sorts of wonky. ABM gets you a little more targeted into what you're doing, and you kind of more just surgical, like I said. Seeing a renewed interest in product marketing. It's again, there's been this like obsession with demand gen for the last 5 years, and all of a sudden someone's sitting back and being like, whoa, let's think about our product. Let's think about the end-to-end customer life cycle and kind of reconnect with, is our product meeting the needs of our customer? What's the competition doing? And kind of just looking end-to-end, what's the product roadmap look like? So we're actually working on a couple of those right now where we haven't had a request for product marketing in quite a while. And there's a tie into content with product there too. And the last thing, which is actually not a functional skill set, but it's writing. Every job description we see says, you have to have all this and must be an excellent writer. And that's not everybody. You can have brilliant marketers who are not strong writers. So that can be really tricky. So for us as a recruiter working with a hiring manager, we need to really drill down on, okay, what kind of writing are we talking about? Just be able to put together a decent email to your team, are we talking about writing an ebook or a white paper? So those are the 5 things that we're seeing. Some of that was already in place, but that's definitely a renewed emphasis on those areas because of COVID and the shift.
So I can't top that, and I'm going to agree with what Sue said, but I would tie it together in what's your theory of change? If we do this, this, and this, if we change the mix this way and that way, what's the impact? How are you knitting it together differently? Oh, you used to have events? How quaint. When are we going to be able to have nice things again? I don't know, right? But in the meantime, what can you do, right? And how do you knit those elements together differently? And of course, you don't know the answer, but like, what are you willing to do to experiment? And what's your theory behind it? And can you kind of translate that into a, language that a non-marketing skilled CEO can understand, right? And the further you go up the food chain, the more you have to explain, we used to be able to do this, and now we're going to have to do that.
Right. Bob, that's a really good point. I had a candidate say to me yesterday, she practices incremental optimization. I thought it was a brilliant way of basically what do marketers do? They do a lot of testing. They tweak what works. If it's not working, stop, try this. Incremental optimization, I think is, and the other thing we're hearing from CMOs is some of the things they've kind of, if you will, been forced to turn to are actually things that are working quite well. So what is not going to be over when the pandemic's over, it's going to become a best practice.
Rodney, your thoughts?
I definitely, I'm going to take a step back from the very specific skills that are identified. And I would talk some more generalized skills that I think are very, very popular with our hiring managers. Number one is collaboration skill. I mean, how well do you work with others? And certainly, I guess the half brother to, collaboration is how well do you certainly communicate orally? I mean, certainly being able to express yourself very well, being able to, adapt to situations is really critical to us. So these are the things we kind of tease out during the initial phone screen with a candidate, just really assessing a little bit collaboration skills, adoption to change, how well do they listen, which is evident by whether or not they're able to, certainly, whether or not I'm forced to reiterate questions multiple times. And then also I would say definitely ability to problem solve. Because I work in an environment where it's really quick, it's really important that we have folks who can think quick on their feet, as well as look a little bit more dynamically at issues and challenges, not so much as a negative, but view it as an opportunity to certainly look at how we can do things better, create greater efficiencies. And I would say that's more of a problem solving perspective. That is looking at things from a perspective in terms of how can I do it better?
Trevon, would you like to add anything to that?
Not much. I think that the fellow panelists kind of hit this right on the head. And I think one thing that also should be stressed within this environment in particular is, as a marketer in particular, is creative thinking. As Sue kind of alluded to at the onset, with this tub of event money that's being made available and not having the ability to mobilize it into staging and VEO and everything else. You have to be creative as it pertains to how you're going to still impact your communities, impact your audiences, and make sure that you ultimately hit the bottom line. Within my space in particular, you have to be able to think quickly on your feet and also execute at a very, very high level. And so I think that's something that that has to work within my space. Otherwise, it doesn't work at all. We don't have a whole lot of time within the association to ponder. So I need to know that the people that are coming through are sharp right out the gate. And then also, I think it was hit on, Rodney as well, made mention of this, but the collaboration aspect is absolutely essential. With so many pieces moving very, very quickly, it's important to make sure that an individual knows how their piece fits within the grand scheme of things, and that they're executing at a level that breadth and scope and depth and scope of their position is pivotal into making sure they were successful. But by and large, I ask a question every single time I interview somebody, and the question is very simply, tell me a story. And it's not based around anything other than their ability to think quickly on their feet and react to the fact that I've just given them something that they have not had an opportunity to prep for. It's not a question that they thought, although most of everybody on here now knows that that's a question they would get if they were talking to me. But I asked them, tell me a story, any story at all, because I want to think how quickly they can think, and then also be able to put together the pieces necessary so that I, as someone who's listening to it, can convey that story back to you with your level of emotion or the actions associated with it. And I think that's important within any marketer's purview.
So let's briefly talk about what happens before landing an interview. Getting a resume into a hiring manager's hands in the first place. I am sure you have seen everything. What is your preference on resumes? How about style, length, or design? Are you looking for 1 page, 2 page, accomplishment driven, or chronological? So this is for everybody. For marketer, what is most effective? We'll go in sharp order. Trevon, do you have any thoughts on that?
Chronological, yes, but then also I want highlights. I want to be able to, I want to talk about your time with a particular organization and your role. More poignantly than just the fact that you have experience with Microsoft Office suites or what have you. I'm much more interested in what you were able to accomplish where you were at a particular location. That will give me all the level of detail as it pertains to how you could potentially fit within what I'm envisioning for my own team. So absolutely chronological, but then also grabbing major accomplishments from a resume, and then that gives us a bit of some meat to talk through. And I think based off of the type of interview that I'm looking to have, I'll get all the answers that I need based off of that.
Stu, Shark 2.
Completely agree with accomplishments. Depending on what we typically recommend, if you've got at least, I'd say, 10 years of experience, your resume should start with a brief summary. Actually, I recommend a headline, 3 words. Who are you? Just, that it's your, it's your headline. Summary, and then a section of accomplishments that don't necessarily have to be in chronological order, excuse me, but are like the biggest things you got. And then after that, you go in chronological order. I can't say that in a word tonight, with each position. And again, still try to be accomplishments focused, but that really, those are the proof. I see that section as the proof points to the accomplishments you put up front. If you're not comfortable calling out a section of accomplishments, then absolutely work them into each of your positions.
Rodney, your thoughts?
I would say right off the bat, I really like when candidates have their LinkedIn address at the top of their resume. And certainly the resume is easier to read. If I have, let's say, 300 resumes that I'm reading quickly in a given day, I really like when it's chronological. It's easier to read. And also, I'm definitely quickly assessing the accomplishments and how does that match up to the particular requirements for the position. Skills are important, especially the technical skills someone may have. If you have any certifications, that's also really important to identify, I think, early in the resume. What tends to happen with anyone that reads a resume, you're really hyper-focused, on the first 3/4 of that resume page, right? So really, having a really tight summary in the beginning, after your name and your LinkedIn address, and then definitely prioritizing your accomplishments. If you have 15 major accomplishments, your most significant ones that give evidence for your level of skill and expertise should really be the top accomplishments. So if you really have it situated that way for each given position, I think it's going to increase the likelihood that your resume is going to then be advanced to the hiring manager.
Bob, do you have anything to add?
Everything they said is exactly where I am. I'm a big fan chronological. The thing people are trying to tease out from glancing 4 or 5 seconds at your resume is, are you at the right kind of scale of accomplishment to do the job that the employer has, right? And they're trying to figure it out from like, how big was their budget? How big was your team? What was the impact you were trying to achieve? What was the issue area? They're trying to get that quick sense of it in like 5 seconds. So don't make it hard, or you're going to go in the maybe later stack and not move forward to an interview stack.
I think I want to just add to that. It's a really good point about the 4 to 5 seconds. We always suggest that assume that's the best you're going to get. And so what's going to pop out to in those 4 to 5 seconds, it's going to be your headline at the top. It's probably going to be, if you have a list of core competencies and they're bulleted, Those will grab your eye, and anything bolded. So one suggestion, in your chronological order, bold your title, not the company. What's more important? It's the role you had, not the company. So if you just imagine, all you're going to see is the bolded stuff, the viewer. So make sure your titles and your functional roles are the bolds, not the company.
So on that note, let's talk about ATS. More than 95% of Fortune 500 companies use applicant tracking systems, or ATS. And Top Resume analyzed 1,000 resumes that were submitted through an ATS, and 43% were sent in an incompatible file type. That means 57% of those resumes were never seen by humans. So is it worth the time to be responding to online job ads when the odds are so low? And how can someone win this war against the machines? Bob, your thoughts?
I was going to try to come up with, you can't spell trash without the letters ATS, but I'm not going to go there. So we deal with a lot of smaller organizations where it's an actual human being who looks at a resume. We don't deal in our client base isn't the giant organizations. If you're not putting monster time into applying, sure, throw a resume into the ATS, but it's a low yield endeavor, right? You're one of, what Rodney get in 4 days, right? You're one of 100 in the first 4 days or something. I mean, sure, you can try it, but just know that it's a low yield endeavor. And you'll see a million tricks for what to do with an ATS. Your mileage may vary.
Rodney?
Yeah, here's the thing, and I'm gonna share a secret with everyone, and so please don't tell anyone outside of those that are currently amongst us here. So definitely, that resume or application that you submit via the ATS, definitely, I think it will get to a person. Now, certainly, what I'm seeing, and when I talk to any of my recruiters within my network, is that it's true. There are quite a number of resumes or applications that don't get to us because it's just incompatible with our system. But if you reach out to recruiters and you connect with recruiters on an active basis via LinkedIn, and once their first connection, identify the position that you've applied to, simultaneously after applying, reach out to the recruiter with a short introduction of yourself and quickly explain the position you've applied for, and 5-star it to say, I am the top candidate for this position, and attach your resume. My curiosity is piqued, even though, it may be 8 p.m. at night and I'm tired of resumes. I go to LinkedIn and I see such a LinkedIn message, it's grabbing my attention. I'm curious, I open it up. Within the 3 or 4 seconds, I can see this person is interesting. Open up their resume and say, wow, this person's applied. Let me go back to the applicant tracking system, or better yet, let me send them a quick message to say, thank you for applying. I'll be in touch.
I'm writing that one down, Rodney. Hold on. And other than resumes, another key selling tool in the job search is the LinkedIn profile. Since it's publicly available, it's clearly valuable for both job seeker for visibility and the hiring manager who wants to get a clear idea about a candidate. So I am curious about each of your thoughts about the platform and how necessary it is in relation to looking for a job. Let's start with Bob, and then we'll go backwards on the shark numbers.
So in recruiting, follow the money, right? There used to be a lot of money in job boards like Monster and Career Builder, and a lot of the money organizations spent there migrated into using tools like LinkedIn Recruiter and some other tools like that. We rely on a bunch of software tools that draw data from LinkedIn and lots of other big data sources, same ones you probably use as marketers, right? So when there's public information, some of these tools can kind of vacuum up your little digital breadcrumbs and find you, right? I have real problems with LinkedIn on any number of levels for how much bias it introduces. But the plain fact is a lot of corporate recruiting is driven off of tools that draw data from LinkedIn, if not, use LinkedIn directly. So the stuff that's on your resume ought to be on LinkedIn, bullets, accomplishments, the whole thing, jobs, sorry, it's not perfect, but it's where the money is in recruiting.
So I'm also watching the time, and we have a whole bunch more questions. We do have a question from chat I want to add because it relates to the resume. And we'll switch up this question. So I suppose Rodney or whoever else wants to volunteer for this, but how much does, when you're thinking about a resume, how much does more personal things matter, such as volunteer roles, interests, hobbies? If someone's listed that on a resume, or even I suppose on a LinkedIn profile, does it matter? Does it add value? Is it wasted space?
I'll jump in on this one. I don't think it necessarily is wasted space. It depends on how you utilize that to give evidence that you are a strong candidate for the position. So, and also if it gives evidence that you're someone that's committed through one of your, professional or social organizations to helping others, or it leverages your leadership skill in some way. I think, those personal associations can be very, very supportive to us as recruiters, showing that you're someone that has what we're looking for. Again, we only spend a few seconds on that resume. On any given day, I'm spending 4 or 5 seconds. So if you highlight the right type of personal things in the right way, that's visible enough, maybe highlighted. But again, more than likely, it's at the bottom of your resume. I'm not going to get there on a resume unless it's somehow pronounced as a strong vocational sort of thing that you're doing on a regular basis, which is evident perhaps further up your resume. But again, you have to think critically about how you structure your resume and where that information should be captured. If it's personal, generally that's at the bottom, unless it's giving evidence to your skills. So therefore, you might want to move it up.
So I'm going to move on to the next question. With the pandemic, everything has moved online, and so has interviewing. What surprises should candidates expect in this new world? Or has it not really changed with the exception of being virtual? For instance, the hiring manager has her video off the entire interview. Surprise, you didn't know this was coming. Or it's a one-way video interview. So I'd like to hear from Rodney and Bob on this one.
I'll jump in again. Man, what is surprising is it's not so much the hiring manager having their camera turn off, is the other interviewers. That's definitely something that I have to combat on a regular basis. The other, not really an issue, but it's interesting when it does happen, is when that little pet kind of skimmers into the room and wants that hug, that little dog or cat wants affection, or when a little one scampers into the view of the camera and wants to look at who daddy or mommy are talking to. That's always interesting. Is it negative? Not at all. It shows that we're human. So I do like that. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise. I just think it's just part of the new normal in this whole video interviewing environment that we currently are in.
So Zoom interviews are really problematic, because if you're really good at reading people, if your empathy skills are really high, Zoom erases your superpower. It's kryptonite for highly empathetic people, right? And then you feel like bored or tired or something, and then you're like, oh, that candidate must be boring, right? And it's not. It's the medium. It's an awful medium for interviewing. I can't wait until we can have nice things again. Vaccines, yay. But it is what we have, right? And so what you have to do is you have to up your presence. You have to talk faster. You have to be more interesting. You have to have shorter answers. You have to act more to be authentic, which is ridiculous, right? But it's the world we live in. It's like, how do you come across as authentic? You have to push energy into the camera, right? I don't normally talk like this, but on Zoom, and I should use my hands like this, sorry, right? But it's a tough medium as a candidate. And that's just what we got. That's, so you have to prepare more for interviews. You have to be more on point, and you have to be briefer, which I did not just give a good example of in my.
So let's talk about attire. What advice do you have for appropriate Zoom attire and looking the part? Trevon and Sue.
I got one line. Can I go?
Sure.
Hoodies are not interview attire.
No hoodies?
Mic drop. No hoodie.
Dress like you would for a normal interview. I'd rather candidate be more prepared than a little too casual, as if they've already got the job. So dress like you would for a normal interview. I have nothing to do with what's going on below what's on the camera. That's your call.
Like we say, professional on top, party on the bottom.
There you go. There you go.
It's ridiculous. I'm sitting here in my house. I don't wear a jacket in my house, but there's a message that you send.
It's a message, yeah.
Right, with what you're wearing. And sure, I'm wearing jeans. I'm not gonna, yeah. But you're on camera.
Mm-hmm. Also, one last thing. I am serious about the hoodies. Think about your background. I absolutely agree with Rodney. I have had interviews with people with a dog on the lap, a cat on the lap, a kid on the lap. That is just life, and it adds a dose of humanity to the situation. And I'm going to remember that person more than I'll remember the next person. So, and again, it's how you as the interviewee handle it. But do think about your background. I've seen laundry, I've seen unmade beds. I understand not everyone has a lot of space, but there are things you can do. This is the screen. It's hiding a lot of bad things right now. There are things you can do to make it look a little more professional. Again, people know you're home, but put a little effort in. I really don't want to see your bra hanging on a doorknob, which I'd say.
And the thing about it, apologize once and then move on. So, hey, sorry, my kids are going to make noise right now.
I think that's great advice.
And then forgive yourself and then roll with it.
And charge your devices.
Good point.
I've had way too many iPads that cut off, and then I get a random phone call. Charge your device.
Yep.
Moving over to soft skills. Soft skills are really important in today's market, but they are also the hardest to recruit for and for a job seeker to demonstrate. So what soft skills, and we've talked about some of them already, but which ones are most sought after, and how can candidates actually effectively demonstrate them? And I actually want to turn this over to Rodney, because you talked about it earlier, and I'd like to, it's what you talked about is important, but how does one actually demonstrate those types of skills?
Yeah, I definitely would say the two skills that I from my experience of being a recruiter for about 15 years, and even when I was in youth development, the two critical skills are the ability to create connection. So that's giving evidence that this is someone that really enjoys being around people. So that sense of creating connections, which gives us evidence that essentially this is someone that can build relationships really well with coworkers. People will enjoy working with them. And if I'm the manager, this person's going to make me look good. So that's really important. How do you demonstrate that? Certainly I think to Bob's point is the energy. Really got to project that energy. A little hand movement is good. And the second skill I would just highlight is definitely listening skills. Active listening is really important. If someone says something and you're not getting everything they're saying, or you may have misinterpreted what they're saying, is you want to confirm, say, hey, did I hear that right? And then just repeat what they said, or just ask them to repeat what they say. So again, I think we're all looking to be very efficient as communicators, and you waste the other person's time if they go through a long explanation or there's a project and you're missing details. That's evidence of poor listening, which then will lead someone to think that you're not a critical thinker. So again, those two skills I find to be incredibly important.
So Trevon, we talked about how authenticity is important to you, but how does someone actually demonstrate authenticity in a job interview?
It's extremely challenging. It's not without its own obstacles in and of itself, but I think some of the things that Rodney just kind of alluded to from a soft skill standpoint, and then just being who you are. I think Sue might have been the one to mention it. Apologize when something goes awry during the interview. Let's keep it pushing. Being concise so that we can get through the totality of the conversation itself. Even within the Zoom platform, you can pick up on quirks from individuals as it pertains to whether or not these things are genuine or they're putting on a great elaborate show for you for a half an hour or so. But I think it's important to, even small things like making eye contact, which seems really, really weird to say while staring at a screen, but it becomes significant in trying to build that connection that was alluded to earlier. So I think, be true to who you are as an individual, because nothing's worse than putting on an elaborate show, someone giving you a job, and then, you can't live up to any of the expectations. And then I would add to that, it's also equally as important to understand that even if I understand that we are very much in an environment where individuals are looking for employment, but you have to make sure that it's the right fit for you as well. Coming prepared with questions, playing off of questions that are being offered by the interviewer itself shows a level of engagement that you are not just waiting to answer the next question, but you are looking for insights in order to ensure that you're making the right decision, or that you are conceptualizing what it is that this role would be for you as well. So I think those are kind of components that I look to in making sure that the individual is being truly authentic in what they're delivering during the interview itself.
Thank you, Trevon. So what do you expect? This is for everyone. What do you expect to see from candidates that we haven't touched on so far? What can make someone, particularly marketers, stand out in this climate? This is just open question.
I'll go. I got two. I get asked a lot about cover letters. And by the way, we should have started all this by saying the dirty little secret was every recruiter has a different opinion. So we're all contradict each other. We're all pretending to agree with each other right now. The cover letter, so I state this is my opinion. I say, why not? Right? So I'm going to make up some number. I'm going to guess that, 80% of cover letters are never read by whoever's on the receiving end. But there's a 20% or whatever the number is, write it. It can help stand out. It should talk track to your resume. You can't get too casual in your resume, and you shouldn't get too casual in your cover letter, but you can certainly have some of the personality and maybe some of the authenticity come through. But do not write a cover letter that is generic and is not customized to the job you're applying for, because I'm done. If I'm reading a generic cover letter that's talking about skill sets that are not in the job description, even when not as obvious, I think you've hurt yourself more than you've helped. So if you're going to do the cover letter, which I do recommend, make sure you are speaking specifically to the job that you have applied to. And you can let a little of that personality come through. The second thing is, it's funny, but it's thank you notes. Many, not all, many hiring managers actually will notice if you have not sent out a thank you note. And I'm talking about email, a thank you email. We just had a candidate lose a job because she didn't send thank you notes. Now, it wasn't the only reason, but they were on the fence about her, and that tipped them off the wrong side of the fence. So, and it's not the first time it's happened. So please make sure to write a thank you email. If it's an HR phone screen, all the way to the hiring manager, all the way to the CEO, everyone should get one. Chances are you have their email address because it's in the meeting invite. So make sure you send it. And please write it, take 15 minutes, come back to it and proof it. Because the worst thing you can do is send a thank you note with a typo. So those are my two.
I want to play off something Trevon said about the authenticity. How do you demonstrate who you are? And a lot of it is the questions that you ask, right?
Totally.
So, hey, I see that you want the person to do X in this job. Help me understand, whatever it is, kind of dig into it, because I'm really good at X, but I'm not as familiar with Y. How important is that to you? So you're kind of revealing a little something of that's not perfect about you, right? I need to learn more about this. I'm better, at that. So the kinds of questions you choose to ask, not the stuff you see on the internet, not anything you've ever looked up. If Google told you the question, don't use it. Have it be actually about the job, right? And that's really authentic to me, because that means you care about the work. That means you care about the impact. That means you care about how you'd actually fit. You're actually thinking about it just as hard as the hiring manager is thinking about it. So that's one element of authenticity that I think really shines through for me.
So we're starting to wrap up. The time has passed quickly. I would like to hear your thoughts on the DC job market as we near the end of the year. Improving, staying the same? hopefully improving in 2021. Sue, do you have any thoughts on how things will be going?
I have a good answer. Improving. We have seen a marked increase in demand searches coming our way over the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks.
Rodney?
Yeah, DC, I would say definitely it's been improving. I think especially for mid-level positions, recruiter friends of mine that have been kind of in the market in DC have said, well, Rodney, there's been definitely a strong change. I think for entry level, it's still quite a bit challenging in DC, but I think, if you're talking about positions requiring at least 3 years of experience to about 8 years of experience, I think that sweet spot, you see a pretty strong increase.
Thank you. Trevon, anything to add to that?
Amen.
Amen.
It's going to vary by sector. I mean, obviously some sectors like hospitality are going to take longer to bounce back, but definitely we're seeing a pickup against the last, it's better now than it was before. It's not fabulous, but heading the right way.
Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom for our marketers on the event tonight? Sending everyone off with a positive thought, positive inspiration.
I've got one more. You can imagine I have a lot. Can you tell I have a lot of opinions on resumes? Back to, we kind of glossed a little over LinkedIn. Spend as much time on your LinkedIn profile as you do on your resume. I'll say it again. Spend as much time on your LinkedIn profile as you do on your resume. Because to all the points we said earlier, I think Rodney wanted the LinkedIn profile right at the top.
Oh, yeah.
People will go to LinkedIn no matter how good your resume is, they're going to LinkedIn. And so
100%.
That's really important. To Bob's point, make sure your LinkedIn profile and your resumes are consistent. They shouldn't be missing jobs because that throws up a red flag. And the other secret is, I can tell Bob's a fan of LinkedIn Recruiter, but many recruiting firms and internal recruiting teams use LinkedIn Recruiter, which is LinkedIn's professional recruiting platform.
Mm-hmm.
And when your application comes in to our platform, the first thing we see is your headline from LinkedIn. That's all we see, name, headline. So customize your headline. It goes back to the headline I was talking about on your resume. And next thing we see is your LinkedIn profile. We have to click it's not to the third click that we're actually seeing your resume. So if we're not sold on headline and LinkedIn profile, we're chances are not getting your resume. So it's really important to spend that time on your LinkedIn profile.
I want to share just one quick thought. You need one job. So don't worry about what the national unemployment rate is or the DC unemployment. You need one job, right? And so look for where you can make an impact that would be meaningful to you, and go find someone with a business problem, like the kind of problem you like to solve, right? And focus on that. I mean, you have agency there. You have something you can do, right? And the front page is just a horrible place to spend your time. Doom scrolling through your newsfeed, not a good place to spend your time, right?
We've had a couple of questions come through, and I'm again looking at the time, but some speedy answers here. But any thoughts on customized video messages? Anyone want to?
You better kill it.
Okay.
If you're gonna do it, you better kill it.
Agreed.
You better kill it if you're gonna do it. That's a risky proposition unless you know what you're doing. I would stay away from it.
Agreed.
All righty. How about thoughts on having your own website as a portfolio of work?
You better kill it.
Mr. Bonds. I knew you were going to say it again.
In all actuality, if you can't, if you're spending that much time on your, I get it, that's great, but I would much rather you have a profile, your LinkedIn profile be up to speed. If you invested much time in making sure that's up to speed, I don't really care about all the other stuff. If you have an external site, you better kill it.
There are,
There's a lot of work.
I'll give a couple of exceptions to that. If you're a graphic designer or a copywriter, you have to have an online portfolio. We're not going to consider you. And if you've been a product marketer or a content person, it's a good thing to have an online portfolio of the work you've done, the assets you've built, etc. That's really a portfolio work, not a meet Sue and hire me website, which I think the question was probably more talking about.
So thank you all. That wraps up our panel for this evening. Just want to thank every one of you. We're not done yet, so don't go anywhere, but we do want to thank our guests who are joining the Marketing Mentors Network tonight. This is the end of our panel, but we do appreciate your joining us. And we ask though the Marketing Mentors Network participants stay on so that we can dive into the Shark Tank